家好，我是世界日报旧金山分社记者李怡，今天为您主持阻仇亚赢共荣的线上论坛。因为自疫情爆发以来呢，亚裔社区的暴力仇恨犯罪事件频发，但是呢，不是每一位受害者的权益都可以得到正义的伸张，因为对当地文化、语言以及司法体系的不了解，所以在今天的线上论坛节目当中呢，我们会特别邀请到旧金山湾区的地检长、旧金山的市议员以及社区的领袖和当地的华裔的著名脱口秀演员来为大家讲述，如果您正在经历或遭遇过仇恨犯罪，应该如何用当地的司法体系来保护好自己以及身边人的正当权益。本次线上论坛呢，首先邀请到的是来自于 Santa Clara County 的地检长罗森。那他对仇恨犯罪呢有一个定义，就是说仇恨犯罪首先呢要有犯罪的行为，包括殴打、袭击、破坏等等。那再其次呢，是否可以指控为仇恨犯罪，还要有多种的依据和考量。所以我们来听听他怎么说。
Let me say this just first, what a hate crime is. A hate crime first is a crime, so a battery, an assault, a vandalism, a robbery. It's a crime, and then in addition, the motivation for that crime is bias against a person because they're Asian or they're Jewish or they're gay or they're from another country. So those two things together make a hate crime. What we're looking for is, can we show evidence of bias, of a motivation from the defendant to say, I'm committing this crime against this person in part because they are Chinese. Some of the ways in which we're able to show that is things that the defendant said. Often the defendants will say, go back to China, or you brought the China flu, and then punch the person, or vandalize their business after saying a slur like that. Other times, we look at the social media accounts that the defendants have to see what they're posting on their social media account. So why is it that this crime was committed against these Chinese people? And then we look at the social media account of the person and see that they're posting a lot of anti-Chinese things. So we're often looking at things that the defendant either said while the crime was being committed or things that they've said in the past. And of course, when we have a situation like we've had where numerous Asians are the victims from a single defendant, that's something that makes us suspicious and causes us to look for more evidence as to why this person is committing these crimes against Asians. In this case, all of the victims that were targeted were Asian women. And we say to ourselves, well, we live in a very diverse county where there are Asians, there are whites, there are blacks, there are Latinos. But these three defendants, all of their victims were Asian women. So one is, we look at that as evidence of what we would call targeting. In addition, in this case, the defendants openly spoke about picking out and choosing Asian women to rob because they thought that the kind of jewelry that Asian women had was better, or that Asian women would be likely to have cash on them. And so that is additional evidence of stereotyping and bias, and it's why we charged a hate crime allegation in addition to the robberies. I think that a hate crime is really a crime against three. Number one, it's a crime against that particular victim or victims. In the case we're talking about, those particular Asian women who were robbed. Secondly, it's a crime against everyone, all of the Asian Americans that live in the Bay Area. Hatred travels quickly. So when, a number of Asian women are targeted for robberies in San Jose, Asian women all over the Bay Area hear about that very soon. And fear and hatred can spread very quickly. And then third, and I think most importantly, it's really a crime against all of us as Americans who live in this country and are entitled to fair and equal treatment under the law. And it is an incredibly un-American thing to target someone because of how they look or where they're from. America is a land of immigrants, and our country has been greatly enriched by immigrants who've come here from all over the world, particularly from Asia.
那接下来的这位来宾呢，他可以说是被华裔社区所熟知。那曾经呢，也是因为在白宫演讲的一段脱口秀呢，让全国的民众对他都非常的了解。那他就是脱口秀演员黄西。那在今年的2023年10月份，他也特别到北加州湾区进行了一次脱口秀的演出专场。那这个脱口秀的专场叫《这个亚裔讨厌仇亚》。当然了，他也是用他自己的创作方式来表达了他对仇亚的见解。那我们也通过一段视频来听听他的感受和认知。
Come on, make some noise for John! I stood up for the losers. People get away with, Asian discrimination all the time, and people say that, racism is going to tear America apart. Racism tears America apart. I was like, no, I don't think so. I think racism makes America. You think about it, because it keeps us distracted from the real problems in this country.
Do what you love. That's the most important thing.
It's crazy, I read reports saying that.
And also, if you experience racism or hatred, you have to say something about it. Sometimes it's very hard to articulate because anti-racism is a language of its own. It's not that easy to speak up, but at least you can say, hey, that's not cool.
Once I was at a comedy show, and this really seasoned comedian whom I actually respect, and he called me a Chinaman from stage. Afterwards, he was like, "That's okay, right, Joe?" I said, "No, actually, it's not cool." He was like, he was mad at me. He was like, "Hey, Joe, come on, you're from China, you're a man." I was like, "Yeah, you're an ass, you're a hole."
Or you just give a gesture, or just say, cut it, or to show some displeasure. Then the other party will know. People can sense it. You don't just take it with a smile. It's kind of a Asian culture thing. People try to be more tolerant toward other people's animosity but it just doesn't work in this country. You have to let people know, when you're saying this, I feel hurt. Even if you just say it straight out.
When you're called a chick for your own son, there has to be some kind of rock bottom, okay? But I have to say something. I was like, hey son, just remember mom and dad are not chinks, okay? Your grandparents.
A lot of times, a lot of kids got called chink, or even, so sometimes they come home and just do the slant eye gesture, doing this to their parents. Little kids, they don't know. They just learn it from their white students, other white students there, So it happens a lot, That's why when I told the joke, nobody feel it's a fake, because most parents, Asian parents here, kind of experience that. I guess one thing I noticed is that kids are very reluctant to actually tell their parents, "Oh, I'm bullied," or "Somebody called me a chink," or give me the slant eye. But parents has to kind of warn their kids a little bit. There are always like racists out there. Because Asians are only about 5% of the population. If you go outside and walk in any major cities in America, you're surrounded by non-Asians. You just never know who's gonna say what to you, so you have to be kind of prepared.
Recent years, Asians in America are having a hard time, partly because of this, right? You know, China and the United States just don't get along that well anymore, right? Nobody agrees with me now. Yeah, that puts me in a really hot spot, you know, because here's the thing, I love both countries. If I hate either country, it would be so much easier, right? But the problem is I love both countries. China is like my mom. America is like my wife. But now they don't get along. Especially when my mom sent my wife balloons, you know?
Well, that's the only thing I can do to make light of the situation, because I can't make it even heavier, you know, because right now things are so tense, and as a comedian, I don't have a diplomatic solution for it. The only thing I know is just to make light of the situation and just let people know that the two peoples are actually very similar to each other. The longer you have lived in both countries, the more you feel that all the differences are very superficial. And deep down, people in these two countries, they have very similar hopes and dreams. So that's what people should remember.
反仇亚阻仇事自然是离不开社区领袖的支持。那来自东安台山同乡会的主席马作霖呢，因为组建了社安队巡逻东安华部而获得了社区和平奖。所以接下来呢，我们通过这段视频来听一听这位社区领袖对于反对仇恨以及仇亚事件又有哪些期許和期待呢？
因為我呢個成立呢個社安隊開始嘅初衷都係想反仇視犯罪呢個工作，咁一路嚟呢都係喺呢個問題上邊去做工作，去摸索總結我哋嘅經驗。咁咧，我覺得咧呢個識別仇恨犯罪咧，通常咧都係應該有兩個方面嘅問題，一個呢個仇恨者嘅言論問題，第二個跟住落嚟係佢嘅行動嘅問題。呢兩方面咧，就似乎係缺一不可。咁我哋所組織嗰個社安隊呢，呢個到今日為止啱啱係900人，就喺我哋歐倫華埠呢個地區呢，就見到好多呢啲咁嘅情況。但係如何去識別呢件事係咪仇恨犯罪呢？當然一般犯罪、普通犯罪就經常都見到有，但係呢個仇恨犯罪呢，我覺得呢都係歸於兩方面嘅理由。一個呢，佢嘅言論係點樣講？有言論加上對我哋嘅仇視嘅動作，咁加起嚟呢，就呢個信息呢就好準確啦。但係呢，往往呢就呢方面呢捉摸唔到，有陣時呢亦都冇咁及時能夠錄影到佢嘅言論，因為走在前線嘅時候呢，就冇辦法及時製作呢個錄音呢方面嘅嘢。咁呢就得唔到好多次嘅觀察。咁譬如講呢，我哋呢個7月份嗰時候呢，我哋喺歐倫華埠嗰個十街嗰度我哋見到一個非裔嘅個街友，咁佢呢個口呢係鬧出叫我哋滾回中國去，係嘛？呢個話佢唔中意我哋，當時佢係講出呢啲説話，但係我哋冇辦法呢及時錄得到佢，因為個行動好急促，咁呢佢呢講咗之後呢，佢就喺度嘻嘻哈哈咁大笑啦，係嘛？即係話鬧咗我哋都冇佢辦法咁意思啦。咁我就即刻咧打電話去警察局嗰度，嗰個仇恨犯罪專線嗰度，咁啊即刻有個警察嚟，咁我哋即係將呢件事情咧就講俾警察聽啦，就警察咧就記錄好佢，之後咧就叫佢離開我哋後門街。咁呢件事情咧就 印證咗我剛才講嗰個問題，係嘛？即係言論加行動證實佢呢件事係實實際際嘅仇恨犯罪嘅行為。由於呢方面咧，呢個資訊咧冇辦法能夠及時能夠即係吸到，咁所以咧變咗仇恨報案咧就有難度就存在喺呢度啦。係嘛？難報案，係嘛？咁樣不過依我自己個人嘅理解，呢個無論是我哋呢個屋崙巷或者其他周邊城市，好似三藩市啊咁樣，我哋經常咧呢個喺呢個範疇咧，就我哋華人呢個受其他種族嘅攻擊嘅數量係不斷增加，咁咧即係從呢個客觀嘅實際講咧，我哋實實在在我哋呢個地區咧係隱藏着呢個仇恨犯罪嘅因素喺入邊。
接下来的这位来宾呢是旧金山市议员，是议长裴思金，他本身呢也代表着旧金山最大的华裔社区旧金山华埠。那他作为犹太裔呢，也曾多次收到了反犹太族裔的恐吓信，所以呢，对于他自己作为一个民选官员，对于仇亚以及仇恨犯罪有着自己独到的见解。我们来听一听他的认识。
My name is Aaron Peskin, and I'm a member of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, which is the lawmaking branch of our wonderful city of San Francisco. We have 11 members who are elected from different parts of the city, and together we are the legislative branch of the government. What I've come to realize is one of the most special places, not only in San Francisco, but in this country, and that's San Francisco's Chinatown. Of the very long, rich organizational history of Chinatown, been a community that's been easier for me to serve. And I'll tell you why. When you have organizations like the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association or the Chinatown Community Development Center that have, in some cases, histories that are 150 years, in some cases histories that are 40 years. They are very organized and they know what they want. They know how the system works. It was easy for me because they had a plan. They had a concept. If other communities in San Francisco follow the model of the level of organization and collaboration that happens in Chinatown, other neighborhoods would be healthier. Which is not to say that there are not conflicts in Chinatown. There are, but there are conflicts everywhere. But it's amazing that organizations will put their differences aside for the better health of the community. And in some ways, that's also because the Chinese culture has a concept of a collective culture, and the American culture is a much more individualistic culture. So, I mean, there are cultural lessons to be learned there. There are many instances in our history in America where this country, because of the irresponsible words of leaders, act out hate on the streets. So you had Donald Trump calling this the Chinese, plague or flu, and all of these crazy individualistic, violent American people decided they were going to take it out on Asian people, and that was the beginning of Asian hate. And again, the community led the way. They knew exactly what they needed and they wanted obviously more police enforcement, obviously more cameras so we could make cases. And so then my job was very clear. I had to go to the chief of police and the captain of Central Station, and not just to have police, but to have Chinese police who speak Cantonese, which is largely the language of Chinatown. And today we have one of the greatest Chinatown beat officer units that we've had since I was first elected. Things are back to normal. I feel safer in Chinatown than I do anywhere else in San Francisco. So I think that part of our collective responsibility was to send a message that Chinatown was being particularly well protected, right? Because it also sent the message to other parts of the city that the government and the elected officials and the police cared about the Chinese American and Asian American communities. We have to do more to grow our police department, to hire more Asian officers. None of that happens overnight. Israel and Hamas on the other side of the world, and it has led to local hateful behavior against Jewish people. And so I have now gotten at my home 3 separate terrible, postcards, which is unsettling, and I'm not going to let it change my life. But what's most important is that I have support. I have support from my colleagues. I have support from the community. And that is also the most important thing when there are instances of violence, or even not even physical violence, but statements of hatred. They are meant to intimidate. I will not be intimidated. I don't want to allow myself or my constituents to live in fear. Obviously, it's going to bring people and economic activity, and is going to shine a light on San Francisco, which is an opportunity for San Francisco to show the country and the world how special we are. Not that we are going to deny that we have challenges. We all have challenges. But to me, it is also particularly important because it is an opportunity for San Francisco to be proud, for San Francisco to feel good about itself, for San Francisco to say that we've gotten through it, that we've recovered. In many ways, like the Pan-Pacific Exposition that was held in 1915, 10 years after the earthquake and fire. And it was a sign of our rebirth. It was a sign of the mythical phoenix rising from the ashes. And it's particularly an opportunity for communities in San Francisco that are historically connected to Asia to be proud and to celebrate and be uplifted. Chinatown, Japantown, Manila Town. And so my hope is that yes, they're going to reap the benefits of economic activity, but that is also a moment that we are all uplifted. And then yes, it comes with cultural ties and connections between people and their home countries, even though they may be generations of living here, to have that connection. But it's also a way for countries, not just people who originally came from China, to feel good about a connection to China, but for countries to have those connections.
感谢您收看这一期的阻仇亚赢共荣的线上论坛节目，也希望我们的社区可以团结一致，互信互利，共同创造美好的亚裔社区环境。我们下一期的论坛节目再见。